Isn't that the truth? People don't want to know how much we know until they know how much we care. If you're just espousing your knowledge, people aren't necessarily going to follow that unless they know there's an emotional connection. Hey, everybody, welcome to Keep the Change. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. We are so honored to be able to do these podcasts with you. Last week I did a solo, and today I'm going to do a solo as well. The reason for that is I'm pretty convicted. Last week I happened to open up the book 21 Irrefutables, and I thought that is content I need to share. I know there's a lot of folks that listen to this podcast. They're in automotive. Some of you are entrepreneurs at Chick-fil-A's or other businesses, but I'm really believing that there's content in here that you and I need to talk about today. And I believe last week was really powerful. I know it was for me. Sometimes the teacher gets more out of it than the student, but I know that there's stuff in here that when you hear this, it will be practical and it will make sense. Here's one of the challenges I think that happens sometimes with the books that are leadership centric. I was talking to a friend of mine not that long ago, and it was actually within the last year. And he was asking me what I'm doing these days. And I said, well, I'm doing a lot of leadership coaching for a lot of different businesses. And he said, oh, tell me about that. Now, this is somebody who owns a business who's very successful. And what he said was he wasn't sure that leadership really was resonating with people that are managers in businesses. The reason for that is they weren't taking the concepts of leadership and putting them into their particular business and how it affects their life and their profits. And I thought, that's interesting. So as I stepped back and looked at that, I thought, wow, I want to make sure that any content I bring to you is stuff that you can use immediately. So I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to look at the content and say, what can I do with what he said? It might not resonate in terms of the way it was presented, but maybe by doing A, I can get better results. So I want you to think about that today. There's some people in here that are parts managers, that are some people that are general sales managers. Some people are general managers. I get all that. Some people own businesses. What I want you to do as you're going through this topic today is ask yourself, what might being great at this or not being great at this due to my business and my profit in my business? Fair enough? Okay, so let's rock and roll. So what we want to talk about today is a couple things. We want to talk about John's book, yes, the 21 Irrefutables, very powerful. But another work that I've done within businesses is developing the leader within you 2.0. Again, great work. Here's my why behind what I do. I believe if you get these concepts and you make it a decision to have a master's in upper management, if you want to call it that, or leadership, that you'll be better at home and in the workplace. And I absolutely believe that it will change the culture of your organization. It'll change the culture of your soul, and it will also make you more profitable. That's just the result that's going to happen. I'm curious to see what you think, but I know that I know because I've seen it over and over again. So here we go. The first thing I want to talk about today is what John calls the law of addition in his book, The 21 Irrefutables. And in that book, John says the law of addition states that leaders add value to others by serving them. Now, back off a minute. You're a sales manager at a dealership. You're trying to get your people to do better. People are humans. They're not bots. When I talk to ChatGPT, I don't have to bring emotions into it. When you talk to humans, you've got to know how humans think to be able to find out what they want to add value to them. So when you can add value to people, want to follow you, right? Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. When people follow you, they're more apt to listen to what you have to say. When they listen to what you have to say, assuming that what you have to say is right, powerful, and makes sense, they're going to have better results. So why wouldn't you want to add value to them? Now, I was in a dealership 5 months ago, and I was with a manager who didn't understand that piece of serving. And it kind of shocked me. I don't know what her relationship was in her home. I'm assuming because she was a working person and her husband worked, that she was not the servant at home, that everybody pulled their own weight, or frankly, I think she was the boss for sure. And yet with her kiddos, what I found was she definitely did serve them. Yes, she was a parent. Yes, she was a high D in the DISC scale, which meant dominant and gets things done. But the result was she buckled her kids in the car. She served them dinner at night. She spent time with them reading books. She was serving their psyche. And the result of that was, because of that, they were more apt to listen and to follow and to, I guess, obey. But isn't that the truth? People don't want to know how much we know until they know how much we care. If you're just espousing your knowledge, people aren't necessarily going to follow that unless they know there's an emotional connection, that there's some kind of relationship. I'm doing some work with a dealership in the West, and there's a high D general manager who works for a high C owner. The owner loves training. He loves teaching. He's actually hired people in that role of general manager to be a trainer and a teacher because he wants that role. When I went out to lunch with him the other day, I said, "What's the greatest challenge that you're having with your general manager?" And he said, "He's harsh with people." And I asked him, "Are you harsh with people?" And he said, "No, I'm not." I said, "How good is he?" Because you're a teacher, Bob. You're good at teaching others. How good is he at teaching others? He said he isn't. He said, "I want him to roll up his sleeves and I want them to get in there and do it with them." And I said, "Huh." I said, "Does he do that?" He said, "No." I said, "Why do you think that is?" He said, "I think he thinks he can just tell somebody to do something and they're going to respond." The result, though, of that behavior from the general manager, and he and I have sat down, is he's frustrated because people don't listen to him. He's frustrated because he has to say things over and over again. What's going on there? For one thing, I can tell you there's no serving going on. There's directing, but no serving. Leadership is not about being the boss. It's about empowering others. It's about teaching and coaching and leading and nurturing. So let's talk about 3 key points that you and I must do. Now, again, if you're in a car dealership, man, put this with your dealership hat on. If you're running a restaurant, I want you to put that chef's hat on and think about this. How can you do this? If this is what this author says that leadership is, you and I better figure out what that means for us. First one, a key point is empowerment. Effective leaders empower their people. Now, what in the world does that mean? Empower them means to give them power, to give them the opportunity to feel like they have value in what they're doing. They don't micromanage them. They don't disempower them. They empower them. They let them run with an idea if they have an idea. They, yes, teach them how to do something. Yes, they delegate it to them, but they empower them to get creative and to get results on their own. Now, if you're empowered by a leader, you want to be prepared, no doubt about it. You want to know the lay of the land, no doubt about it. But you got to know, if you're being empowered by your boss, you're going to make mistakes. If you're a leader, you've got to be okay with them making mistakes. There's 3 questions that I love to ask at the end of every day, to the people I coach, to the people I lead, and to myself. Number 1, what did I do well? Now think about that. If you were empowered to do something and you ask yourself that question, what did I do well today? Then your brain will start finding out what those ideas are. Well, I did well when my boss empowered me to do the meeting. I did well because I was prepared. I did well because I had the strategies and I role played. Perfect. The next question to ask is, what did you learn? Well, maybe if you're the empoweree, allowed to do something by your boss, maybe it's a meeting. What I learned was I had too much content. And because I had too much content, we lost the audience at a point. Perfect. The next question is, what must you change? Well, next time I'll have half as many points and I will get more people involved, and I'll have a list of questions after each point to ask my people. Wow. Can you see what happens under any environment? Boss, you empower them. They run with it. They will fail forward. They ask better questions. They grow in that experience. I have to tell you, man, I'm learning so much, even recently, about failing forward. I love failing. I know that sounds really strange, but what that means to me is I know I'm growing and growing, and I'm getting better and better. So it's really powerful for me to try something and ask those questions. I did something the other night, and my wife, so sweet. And I said, man, I failed at that one. And she said, no, you didn't. And I thought, oh my gosh, you're exactly right. No, I didn't. Because if I say I failed and use it in that context, I might not try again. We want our people to try again. We want them to grow. We want them to be creative in the way they are, that when we empower them, right? All right, empowerment. It will help them grow personally because it builds their self-esteem, especially if they ask those questions, and professionally. And I'm okay with people growing at home, man. I think that's a great thing. My friend Drew Tutton would say he wants the people to grow at home because he knows if they grow at home, they're going to be better in the workplace, right? It's important to grow at home as much so as the workplace. All right. Key points to the law of addition is service. We serve others, and that fosters trust and loyalty. People will go to war for you when you serve them. Remember my friend who is a leader didn't know how to serve her people? She just didn't. And frankly, I will tell you the reason she didn't know how to serve her people is because she was insecure. She didn't want to put herself at a lower level. She wanted to be above them and felt in her position that she needed to be more dominant so that they would respect her. I've never been a woman in a business that's male oriented. I don't know if it's a common denominator or not, but this person was a woman, and I know she was putting on a mask, kind of a false pride, so she could feel tough in that group. I believe the women that I've seen, my mom was one of them. I've got some other people that I'm really close to that I've seen are the best, are the women that are authentic, men that are authentic, women that are strong in their stance, men that are strong in their stance, women that are servants. Serving means helping others grow to the next level. Men that are servants. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It's the same darn thing. Serve. That's what people want. When you serve them, they're thinking, oh, this person cares about me. I'm going to give you the most quoted quotes on the Keep the Change podcast. You get anything you want if you help enough people get what they want, and that they don't care if you're right. They want you to be real. You got to be real first. All right, serve others, and that creates a culture. And see, man, I was with my friend Tyler this morning, and he's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks. And Tyler has created this culture assessment that is so powerful, that just gives a 2050 view of a 360 view. I mean, it improves the vision and it improves the dynamic of the culture in our organization. And you're going to be very interested in this. It blew me away because I figured if I know how people think, that makes me in a better position to help fix that, help serve that, help lift that up, help add to that. I need to know how people think. They don't always tell us how they think. So what's cool about that is when I know how everyone thinks, then I can work on the culture. Now, culture is one of those fuzzy words, But we've done research. Gallup has done research. And you know what they say? They say that the companies that have the best culture, where people love what they do, they make a lot. It's a huge piece in our psyche. And today, in the world where we've got emotional intelligence everywhere and the world's growing so fast, we need to grow in our relationships with our people and grow in growing our people. That's the most important piece. And the next one, we talked about empowerment. We talked about service. We're going to talk about value creation. Leaders who add value to others enhance their teams and their organizations. And the people that have had value added to them, they start thinking of ways to add value to others. Value begots value. Now, there are those that will take, you can add value to them and they take it and they hoard it and they won't help anybody. Those are probably not the people you want in your organization. What you and I know is the level 4 leader is that people development leader, right? We want the leader that develops other people. Look, you know the 5 levels, but I'm going to tell them to you anyhow. Number 1 is position. Number 2, permission. They have relationships. Number 3, production. They get results. Number 4, people development. Wait a minute. Whoa. People development's before results? Yes. The people development leader. That's where we want to be. That's the next level. Last one is pinnacle, where leaders develop leaders who develop leaders. But 4 is the next to top level, next to top tier. When we're developing people, guess what happens? We develop great relationships. We make great profits because we're helping them be better. And in the result of that, they start being more creative. They start growing more. They start doing value creation in other people too. So here's some questions for you guys. Okay? Everybody ready? Can you recall a time when a leader added value to your life? And how did that impact you? Ooh-wee. Can you recall a time when a leader added value to your life, and how did that impact you? I'll never forget. I'll never forget it. I was a young punk. I was 19 years old. Actually, maybe I was 20. And I applied to, my dad was a car dealer. And I have to tell you the story real quick. My first job as a car dealer was one of my dad's friends, or excuse me, as a car salesman was one of my dad's friends. My dad's dealership was small. He wanted me to go out and work for somebody else. So I went to a place called Donaldson Ford. They gave me a 2-week training program. They were great people. But unfortunately, after 2 weeks, even though I sold a car on Thursday night, after 2 weeks, I blew off the sales meeting by accident because I was hungover. And when I came in later, they fired me. So I was there for 2 weeks, got fired. So I went to my dad, my tail between my legs. I said, Dad, can you help me? And he said, yeah, go see this guy. So I went to see a guy named Joe, good Italian dude in Bowling Green. And I went to work for Joe, and I worked there for a whole month and sold, guess how many cars? 2. Guess what happened? I got fired. I wasn't very good. Got no training. It was my fault, not theirs, but I wasn't very good. At that point, I went and dug ditches. And then one day, a friend of my dad's, a guy named Frank Kistler, called my dad and said, how's it going? What are you doing? And then he asked about me. He said, what's Bart doing these days? And Frank said, well, Bart's digging ditches. Frank owned the #1 Ford dealership in Toledo, Ohio. And he said, that kid doesn't need to dig ditches. That kid needs to sell cars. Get him in here to see me. Next Saturday, I sat in front of Frank, and I won't go through all of it, but he hired me. Now, within the month, halfway through the month, I was leading the top salesperson at that dealership. And I'll tell you why that happened. Because when he hired me, he said to me, Bart, I believe in you. Excuse me? I suck at this. He said, I believe in you. He really meant it. And I just needed to hear that. He believed in me. He spoke it to me. He added value to me. He coached me. 3/4 of the way of the month, he said, I'm so proud of you. If you get salesman of the month, I'm going to call your dad and we're all going to go out to dinner. And I thought, what? How cool is that? A month later, my dad died. When I was at his viewing, Frank came in and put his hand on my shoulder and said, Bart, I'm sorry. I never got to tell him that you got salesperson of the month. I'm so sorry. But he said he knew it. He knew how good you are. I would do anything for Frank Kistler. He added value in me because he believed in me. It changed my life. Next question I want to ask you is, in what ways can you add value to those around you today? How can you add value to them? Now, again, if you're so worried about the financials and you're not worried about adding value, maybe you should. I think if you and I look, if we're in the automotive segment, we can look around and see super successful dealerships, and there's some with lousy cultures that are making money. It's not a long-term play, though, is there? And then there's some that just have incredible cultures and low turnover and happy employees and great communication and accountability in place. It doesn't mean it's all soft. There's accountability. That's the top. There's accountability in place. Doesn't mean we punch them in the nose if they don't get it done, or throw a stapler at them if they don't get it done. But they know in advance. All people know in advance. Adults know in advance. We're going to hold them accountable. Isn't that life? We got hopefully held accountable in school. We get held accountable in our athletic teams. Shouldn't we be held accountable in our business environments? And if somebody doesn't know what accountability is, shouldn't you and I establish that? Does that mean it's a bad culture? No, it means it's a great culture. And when you and I can make sure there's people are having fun and they really enjoy where they work, and they have a lot of friendships, and they have accountability, and that accountability begets results. Man, what an organization that is. I'm sure a lot of you organizations like that. I do. How do you view your role as a leader, whatever you do, in terms of serving others? I've seen people that are sales managers on the desk that are jerks, man. But they're production leaders. They can get stuff done. They average $4,000 a car, and the owner might not get rid of them because of the fact that they are so good. Or a finance manager that's averaging $3,000 per unit, and they're just not very nice to customers, but everybody puts perfume on the pig. Those things determine culture of the business, don't they? Sometimes it's hard to pull the trigger with those people that are making money, but are just such, I was going to say cancer, but it's not cancer, it's a virus. Because when you've got somebody who's just a jerk, and you keep them just because they make money, what do you think's going on around the organization? If you don't think that it is causing issues, you need to do one of those culture assessments. That's what you need to do. The heart of a dealership is serving people. We know building relationships is huge, and leaders who foster strong relationships with their teams improve morale and productivity. They just do. And a big part of building relationships is listening and understanding, knowing who they are, knowing what they're going through. You know what? You can turn a blind eye to it, but dude, I get it. I've been in dealerships for 40 years. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's abuse going on in the parts department with some kind of drug. There's abuse going on in the business office with the way somebody speaks to somebody else. I'm not saying this is true everywhere, you know, and I know, but if you're turning a blind eye to people doing, maybe smoking weed out back, then what's going on is you're, again, killing the culture. It's just the way it is. And it's so important for you and I to pay attention. I think that's the key word to everything going on in our businesses, because it's hard out there, man. It's a tough world. I do one-on-ones with people in all roles and all dealerships every single week, and I hear things that I would never repeat. And in that conversation, I know that these people are struggling. And I know it's my role to help them see the way that there's another alternative to get back on track, because if they can feel better about themselves, they're going to be a better employee. I love one-on-one coaching. You know it. I know it. We've talked about it. Why? Because I want to know my people, man. I want to know what they're going through. I don't want to just know that Billy's having struggles with his wife, but I want to know Billy's having struggles with his wife so I can see how it can help. I mentioned a friend earlier that owns a bunch of dealerships. He wants to know what's going on with his people. Does he hold them accountable to the processes? Yes. I think sometimes he feels maybe I'm too nice, but on the other hand, sometimes he feels like maybe I'm too harsh on him. But the reality is the people that stay with him and work for him know how much he cares, and know because of that, he knows how much he understands. Good people, again, good leaders take time to listen to their team members. They demonstrate empathy and understanding. Gotta have it, man. Another key point of being a powerful servant leader is creating impact, as we talked about. When leaders focus on serving, they create a positive impact, not just within the team, but also the community. So let's think about your role. How can you serve today? How can you serve somebody today? Maybe it's in a one-on-one coaching environment. Maybe it's taking one of your guys out for breakfast. Oh my gosh, don't do that. Of course, why not? Maybe it's buy them Chick-fil-A in the sales meeting and have some discussions. Another question I'd love to ask you is this: what strategies have you employed to serve your team effectively? You're listening to this, you're already doing some of these things really well. What are you doing to serve your team effectively? Maybe it's a fishing trip. I know many of you listening to this know David Long. They do some incredible events at Hansel in California. They do Halloween events, they do Christmas events, they do fishing trips. They come together as a team and they walk with that same relationship David has, which is a very friendly, compassionate, accountability-based organization. It's all about business, but it's not always all about business. So let's think about this. If there's 10 things that you really want to work on, I'm going to share them with you in a moment. I'm going to share these with you. If there's 10 things that you really want to work on that a friend of mine shared with me, and I'm going to give these to you, 10 things that you really want to work on in your culture, with the culture of your business. Think about these 10 things. Communication. How good's your communication within your team? How can you better serve people for better communication? You might say, well, Bart, I don't know. I'm not a very good communicator. No kidding. That's fantastic for you to admit that. Good for you. The reason I say no kidding is that's very common. You need somebody to help you with that. See, I heard somebody not too long ago say collaboration is so important for his business. And I believe collaboration in the right way is important for your business too. I have collaborators that are way smarter than I am. And don't you maybe need collaborators that'll help you with your communication? If you want some help with that, let me know. How about accountability? Do you really have people in place that empower and hold people accountable? I think you might say, I don't know how that looks. Great. My name is Bart and I can help you. How about looking at values? Value-based organizations run better than unvalue-based organizations. Are your people feeling like they're being seen and heard? Or do they feel just invisible and come to work and get out of there? It's good to come to work, but how about teamwork? Do your people work together? We in our business have always competed, parts against service, against sales, all that, right? And then we wonder why there's walls between the departments. How could we come together? I've seen some of the best dealerships eat together with service people, a few of them over here with a few salespeople, and it's common. There's friendships, there's collaborations going on in those two departments. How about trust and respect? How's that going in your dealership? How could you lead an organization that trusts each other and has respect for each other? If you, Mr. and Mrs. Leader, don't have trust or respect for others, they're never going to trust or respect anyone else. And they might act like they do because they're smart enough to understand that what in a social environment, how to make it look like they trust and respect each other, but it's not happening. If a sales manager can't be trusted with a deal, or a finance manager is lighting a salesperson up because they didn't do a great credit app, that affects the psyche of that person. It doesn't mean that coaching them on how to do it isn't important. Of course it is, but it's when and how. Have you ever noticed when you tell somebody to do something, most of the time they don't get you? Why? Because most of the people in this industry are high D personalities, or they direct, and when they talk, it's like flames coming out of their mouth, right? And yet the problem with that is there's a force field around people. After they've heard it for a little while, it just goes, bing, they are hearing a word you're saying. I want to be connecting so my people hear me so I can help grow them. How about continuous learning and development? I love what someone just asked me the other day. Matter of fact, you've heard me talk about this. I have a client. Well, I asked him actually. I said, who's a future client? I said, what's the most important for you as a manager to pass on to your people? What do you want them to accomplish? And he said, I want them to be always growing and learning. That's great. Tell me about what you put in place to have your people always growing and learning. Well, we're not doing anything, but I tell them, go ahead and get on the videos, study the videos. Really? Do you think they're really learning? I don't think so. Maybe your manager is the most important piece in the store. Who's training your managers? Anybody? Are you relying on them listening to old John Maxwell tapes on the way to work? If it's really important, what are you doing to develop that learning and development? What do you do to celebrate and appreciate your people? See, people love to be celebrated and appreciated. Happened with me with Frank. What are you doing to have a fun and positive environment at your organization where they love it? And then lastly, servant leader, what are you doing to support and care for your people? Those are some great questions, aren't they? I hope that you listen to this again, that you go through this again, that you take some notes again. And I hope that you get that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. I want you to lead with the law of addition, give. I want you to lead as a servant leader. Why? Because when you lead as a servant leader, it lifts everybody up. You heard me talk about Jay Eustace Wolfington, who's going to be on this podcast here pretty quick. And as we close today, I want you to do a little artwork. Draw a triangle on a piece of paper. Everybody do that real quick. At the top, put you. If you're the general manager, the owner, put you on there. Maybe you're a sales manager and you put yourself at the top. Owner of a Chick-fil-A, put yourself at the top, okay? Once you have that, then who is everybody underneath? That's all you people that work for you, right? Okay, now grab a new piece of paper, please. And go ahead and draw a triangle. But this time, upside down triangle. And I want you to put your name at the bottom. What's that say? That's your role. To serve all those people above you. To develop all of them to be better human beings. That if someday one of your employees passes, God forbid, and their spouse is there at the funeral, as are you, and she says, you are the reason my husband lived a life of significance. He was always really selfish until he met you. And then he learned how to serve others. And he found his value in life. He found his purpose in life. Our purpose isn't profit. Our purpose is potential. How do we help people reach their max potential? That's your purpose. Thanks for joining me. Love some feedback. Love you to share it. Love you to subscribe. You know all that stuff. Hey, join me in a couple weeks. Stay tuned. Look for it on socials. Reach out to me at bart@bartnollenberger.com about when our next 21 Irrefutable Laws workshop is going to be. It's coming soon. And by the way, if you want a free copy of the book, The 21 Irrefutables, the first 5 people on this podcast that email me at bart@bartnollenberger.com, first 5, that's all I got for you. I'm going to send to you the workbook, the 25th anniversary edition of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's good, man. It's good. Thanks, everybody. Great having you here. See you next time on Keep the Change.